Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the second special right angle, and that's going to be known as the 30, 30, 90 degree triangles. Yesterday we talked about the 45, 45, 90 degree triangles. This one is 30, 60, 90. Okay, so into it. Again, we are going to be learning about the 30, 60, 90 degree. The very first thing I want you to do is please write down everything below that yellow bar. Everything below the yellow bar is what you are writing down. Okay? A 30, 60, 90, as I read the stuff above, a 30, 60, 90 triangle is another special right triangle. You can use an equilateral triangles to find a relationship between its sides. So basically what you're looking at here is going to be, you're looking at what's your shorter side, what's your longer side, and then obviously what's your hypotenuse. Well, the very first thing is, as I'm reading down here, the length of the hypotenuse is 2 times the length of the shorter leg. Well, we know the hypotenuse is going to be the side that is opposite of the right angle. So right there, I'm just going to write hyp as for hypotenuse. Now, we know that that is going to be 2 times the length of the shorter leg. Now, how do we know which one's the shorter leg, which one's the longer leg? Well, it's opposite the smallest angle, so it's always going to be opposite the 30-degree angle. So your short side is always going to be opposite of your 30-degree angle, which means your longer side is going to be opposite of your 60-degree angle. Okay, so on this right, this is the long, this is the short. Okay, and what you're doing is you are basically setting up an equation, okay, or an expression. Okay, when you know your short side, you know in order to find the long side, you need to take your short side times the times the square root of 3. When you multiply those two numbers together, you get the length of your long side. Now, if you take 2 times your short side, that's where you come up with your hypotenuse. Again, here it is as an example. AC is your short side, as you can see right down there. Okay, AC, that is S. Your AB, that's your hypotenuse. That's your 2S because you're taking your short side times 2, and then your third side, which is going to be the longer of the legs. Okay, the longer of the legs, which is you take the short leg and multiply it by the square root of 3. Alright, so let's give this a shot. Looking up at this first one, I want you to find the values of x and y and give your answers in simplest, this is where it says radical form. So you're not finding the decimal form, you're finding the radical form. You're going to have, normally you'll have some sort of radical, or it's going to come out to be a perfect square when it talks about that square root of 3. Now, again, looking at this first one, I want to show you this first one, and then I want you to try the second one on your own. Okay, so this very first one, if we know our hypotenuse, we can easily find our short side. If you remember from that previous slide, our hypotenuse is equal to 2 times, and I'm just going to put SL, okay, for the short leg. Alright, now you figure out which one's your short leg. Well, it's always the side that is opposite, or always the leg that's opposite your 30-degree angle. So we know that our hypotenuse is opposite of our 90-degree angle. So our hypotenuse is 22, where our, if you look at this, if we look at our short length, or our short leg, it is going to be equal to, that's our x, and we need to take 2 times x to get to our hypotenuse. So again, I kind of set it up. It's going backwards. What information do we know, and what are we trying to get? So then, in order for us to get x, we're going to take 2x, divide it by 2, and x is equal to 11. So what that tells me is my short leg is equal to 11 units. Now, if we know our short leg, we can easily find our longer leg, because again, I'm going to just write this formula down. Your long leg is equal to your short leg, again I'm going to use SL for short leg, times the square root of 3. So we know our short leg. Our short leg is that x. Okay, so x is equal to 11 times the square root of 3. Because the square root of 3 is not a perfect square, we can't break it down any farther, and we can't combine 11 and the square root of 3 because 11 is not a square root. So our overall answer is going to be 11 times the square root of 3. Okay? Now, I want you to try example number 2. It is giving you a little bit different information. Try to decipher what it is, and then we'll talk about it. Alright, so looking at this, you have your, what information do you know? What information are you trying to get? Well, we know our short leg. Okay, so our short leg is equal to 5. We want to figure out our long. Our long is x, and our hypotenuse is equal to y. Now, how do we know it's the short leg? How do we know it's the long leg? How do we know it's the hypotenuse? Well, again, hypotenuse, opposite of the 90-degree angle. Okay, short leg is opposite the 30-degree angle. Long leg, this is opposite the 60-degree angle. We know that this is 60 from our triangle sum theorem. We have a 90, 30, last angle has to be 60 degrees. Okay, so now plugging in our formula, we know that in order for us, if we have the short leg, we can easily find the hypotenuse, because our hypotenuse is equal to your short times 2. Okay, plugging in our short leg, which is equal to 5, multiply it by 2, our hypotenuse, or in this case, it is done by the variable of y. Y is equal to 10. Okay, again, then going back, finding x. Alright, so we know x is going to be our longer side. We know that long is equal to your short times the square root of 3. Again, you don't have to show this much work. I'm just breaking it down. Okay, short leg is 5 times the square root of 3. Again, we cannot combine 5 and the square root of 3 because 5 is an integer. Square root of 3 is going to be an irrational number. We can't combine because that is it has a square root or your radical symbol, so we can't combine those. So it does not become the square root of 15. It becomes 5 times the square root of 3. Again, it does not become the square root of 15. You can't combine those two. Okay, and we're done with those problems because we found them in radical form. Nice work. Alright, these 2 more problems, I want you to, given the information that you know, I want you to solve, but you do need to make sure this time you are rounding to the nearest tenth. Instead of it using a radical, okay, you're rounding and finding your answer to the nearest tenth. Alright, so give 1 and 2 a shot. Alright, so this first one, if you look at that, again, what information do we know? What information do we need to know? We know the long leg opposite the 60-degree angle. We want to know the short leg and the hypotenuse. Alright, I personally like to always start with information that we need to know, okay, or that we can figure out. We need to figure out, in order for us to figure out the hypotenuse, we need the short leg. In order for us to find the long leg, we need the short leg. So everything kind of hinges on that short leg. So let's find the short leg length. Okay, and that's equal to, long is equal to short times the square root of 3. Well, we know the length of our long is going to be 15 equals x times square root of 3. This is the exact same steps. We're doing the exact same steps as we have done before. Well, we have multiplication there, which means we need to divide. Divide by the square root of 3. Do not get scared about having that square root on the bottom because, again, we're finding the nearest tenth. So when you divide 15 by the square root of 3, x is going to be equal to approximately, those are approximate signs, 8.7. From here, we're going to be solving for our hypotenuse. Again, our hypotenuse is equal to, what is the formula for our hypotenuse? You got it. Short times 2. We know our short leg is 8.7. we still keep that times 2 as our constant. So hypotenuse, or our y, is equal to 8.7 times 2, which is 17.4. So take your time in these steps. Make sure you know the route to get to what do you need to find. Again, I always like to start with finding that short leg if the short leg is not known, because then you can easily navigate into finding the long leg and the hypotenuse. If you're given the short leg, then you're just plugging it into those formulas and solving, and it's a little bit easier. Okay, this next one, let's see how you did. Again, we know our hypotenuse. Our hypotenuse is equal to the short leg times 2, same thing as it was over here. This is, again, 30, 60, 90 degree triangles, not 45, 45, 30, 60, 90. Okay, we know our hypotenuse is 24. Our short leg is which variable? Which variable is our short leg? Absolutely, it's going to be our x. How do you know that? Good, it's opposite of your shorter angle. Times 2, divided by 2, and x is going to equal 12. We know what x is. Now let's solve for y. Now let's solve for our long leg. Long leg is equal to your short times the square root of 3. Well, we know our short leg length is 12 times the square root of 3. Again, we cannot combine the 12 times the square root of 3. Why? Because that's underneath a radical. So when we multiply 12 times the square root of 3, you get your answer of 20.8. Which makes sense, because 24 needs to be larger than 20.8. If your long leg turns out to be longer than your hypotenuse, that's impossible. Our hypotenuse is the longest side, so it should go right in order. Alright, ladies and gents, this is the last problem that I want you to try. It's going to be a little bit more complex. I want you to give this one a shot, see how you do. Use those exact same formulas. What information is known? What do we want to find out? And what are the formulas to figure that out? Give her a shot. Alright, so coming back, now what information do we know? Well, we know our hypotenuse. Okay, and what are we going to be doing? Well, we're going to be finding the value of each variable, and this is the key right here. Write your answer in radical form. So this is going to be the more difficult problems you're going to come across. Alright, so let's see how we did. Again, hypotenuse is equal to your short times 2. Okay, our hypotenuse is 18 times the square root of 3. It means our short leg is which variable? It's going to be x. Again, we know that this side right here is 60 degrees, which means that tells me my y is the long side. So we need to take your short, which is x, times 2. How do you get rid of that 2? You divide. Okay, exact same steps as you've done in the one-step equations. Now, what can we combine? Again, if you notice up here, we have an integer of 18, we have an integer of 2, and we have our radical of 3. We cannot combine our integers and our radicals. Alright? Can't do it. So what we can do is we can combine our two integers and simplify. So when I look at 18 and I look at 2, I can simplify those two down to get 9 times the square root of 3. So the square root of 3 does not change whatsoever. But that 18 can be divided by 2 to simplify. Alright, now we just figure out which side. We just figured out x, which is our short side. Okay, so now what we're going to do is take that information that we just found out, plug it into our long side equation. What's our long side equation again? Yep, your long is equal to short times the square root of 3. So we know x is our short side. We need to plug that in. So it's going to equal our x, which is 9 times the square root of 3, but still multiply times your square root of 3. Now we have two square roots. We can combine these two square roots. Okay? Don't combine a square root and an integer, but combine a square root and a square root. So we have square root of 3 times the square root of 3. When you combine these two, you get 9 times the square root of 9, because 3 times 3 is 9. When we combine that, we know we can simplify that. Ladies and gents, what is the square root of 9? Think in your head, what's the square root of 9? What times what equals 9? It's going to be 3. So, because we know the square root of 9 is 3, we still need to multiply by 9. We get our answer of 27. Okay, 27. Now, you might be thinking, that doesn't make sense because our long side is going to be 18 times the square root of 3. Well, when you think about it, 18 times the square root of 3 is above 27. It's right around your 30 range, in the 30s. Okay, so when you take 18 times the square root of 3, it's going to be a longer length than your longer leg, which it should be. The length of your triangle 30, 60, 90 should go short leg, long leg, hypotenuse, and that's exactly what this problem does. Okay, nice job tonight. If you have any questions, please let me know. Come to school ready to go. All right, have a good one.